Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Sakar. How are you?
I'm doing good. How
Oh,
are you doing?
good, good. So there's another Kevin triplet here. His name is actually Nathan. I didn't realize that the links are tied to members. So
Oh,
uh,
funny.
Nathan's in Portland. Once if Scott gets on, I'll introduce Nathan.
All right. If Nathan wants to join with his own identity, they can do that by clicking on the link that's not tied to Kevin. It's there on the Zoom chat. You have to exit and rejoin.
Okay,
Will do.
okay, cool.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks. Um, Nathan is someone who does this for a living. And so he's also interested in what we're trying to do with this network protocol. And so that's why I asked him just to observe the group because I'm thinking we need more people involved in what we're doing here.
We will need more people. We will need a lot more discussions. I'm not very sure if Scott or Nikki, at least I don't know if Nikki is going to be able to join because I usually Nikki posts an agenda midday her time, and I didn't see one. Scott's here, so
Uh,
that's good. At least one, we have
okay,
one
good,
step forward.
great.
I don't see Nikki here.
Hey, Scott.
Well, we'll give Nikki a minute or so and then would like a conversation on where and what we expect to do in this task force based on where we're at here.
And I've invited my friend Nathan. We were talking just before the call. This is what he does at his work, and he's also interested in what we're doing as far as the network goes. So I just asked him to come just to observe.
Okay,
So
thank you. Welcome, Nathan.
Good to be here. Nice to meet you guys too.
Uh, yeah, so, it's not, anyway, for your benefit, Nathan, we'll say where we're at and then that would help the conversation of what we need to do. So Drummond started up this decentralized trust graph working group in looking at trying to put together some of the standards-based um, properties that uh, human-to-human networks and infrastructures can use. So part of that, typically in the methodology that we have launched with the Trust over IP Foundation, is to, in the governance process, the first thing that gets started is a risk assessment. And so, and that was right at the beginning, and we felt that, everybody should be involved in the risk assessment so that when, if other task forces are created, they would, use that as guidance to develop conformance requirements. And so we kind of put that out. We have this, so the toolkit and we have the methodology on risk assessment. We did get to, together in a small group like this. And the first thing that we kind of ran into is we don't even know what the scope is. And so we redirected an exercise from moving from a risk assessment to what are we talking about here? What's the pieces that we are trying to assess risk in? What is the obligation of the standards organization, development organization, and what would be the responsibility of external parties that want to use what we're doing to realize an ecosystem using this technology? And so I think it was a very good effort, and it definitely clarified some things for a lot of people because what we're talking about here is hard to grasp. Um, Individually we understand, we're trying to issue person-to-person credentials and all that, but how is that managed? And so, concepts that are brought out in tomorrow's working group deal with communities being driven by governing authorities that have their own requirements that they can then use out of whatever gets created here. And there's not many people that are very versed in risk assessment tools and techniques. I think let's say the four of us do. Okay. Um, the people that are creating specifications, credential schemas, and other requirements on the infrastructure, they're very good at just to set, putting together what the requirements could be, and not necessarily the requirements against a certain risk profile. Uh, and so it became a little difficult to I think promote a risk assessment process to this particular effort. Now, in my efforts, I have done both start from the beginning, deal with the risk, move to governance requirements, and then maybe, create some accountability scheme associated with that. There's been a linear focus on that. There's also in projects that I've worked on where similar to this, where organizations, they know what they want and they just go out and they start identifying criteria and requirements. And then it becomes kind of a, after the fact check in to see, okay, you created a specification or a requirement. Then the question comes down to, well, why did you do that? What are you trying to accomplish with this? Are you addressing risk? You're trying to mitigate risk. Is it a significant risk? What is it? So, in the fact that we did not have and could complete, this risk assessment model, I kind of put my hands up and I told Drummond, I said, we'll just have to come back to it. We have some structure. Let's see what your task forces are coming up with. And then we can review that and then start asking the questions of, okay, you came up with this litany of requirements. What risks are you thinking to address? And then that would be the way to fill it out. The effort is just starting. And that's where I kind of left it. And so this task force was combined with a harms task force. So Nikki has been very prominent in the marketplace to identify harms in the use of technology, especially this type of technology. I've had experience in working with a harms group in another group that I'm serving, which is called the C2PA, the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. And they do risk assessments, and I've worked with them, and that helped a lot. So that whole group that knew how to do that. And they also advocate for monitoring the use of this technology for harm. Whether it's a credential attached to a digital object or now a personal connection, personal. And there are harms associated in the marketplace with any technology, advancement. Some certain countries are targeting the use of this to present harms to populations and such. So we are now at kind of a juncture where the risk assessment piece is kind of in stasis, and the harms process hasn't really kicked in. I'm looking, I would be looking to Nikki Hickman and Sankarshan to drive more of the that aspect of it. And the question is do we start now? Nikki's not here, Drummond's not here. he left me a message saying he was overtired. He had a long set of seminars last week and this and that. So, and to be honest with you, I am now starting to get conflicts. I have a conflict right now. And once a month, I would prefer being, attending the threats and harms group of the C2BA. So there's active stuff going on. So that's my opening statement here. And I would like to get feedback on on a game plan. Task forces are put up for temporary
Yeah,
purposes
those are
to
good
solve problems. My question is do we have a short-term problem to solve? What do we do today? Do we hold this in stasis? Do we have activities that we can do to advance what we think are our objectives here? And I'm looking at Kevin's backyard filled with snow, and I'm sitting
Yep.
out here in Glendale, Arizona, just so you know.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, I'm in DC at the moment. East Coast is snowed
where
under.
it'll probably be 75 degrees Fahrenheit today. So just
Oh, rub it in.
Anyway.
Rub it in, Scott.
But
About
no,
right,
you're supposed
yeah.
to say I love the snow. Supposed to say I love the
snow, of
snow
course.
and
I
the
love that.
sliding. That's it.
I love how white it looks.
So
That's a
feedback
good
from
assessment, Scott.
all of
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. I guess what stage are we in? Are we harvesting potential harms? Are we doing that collection work at the moment, or do we have what we feel like is a good initial batch?
I can't speak to that. I think that Nikki is best to speak to that. I think
Okay.
so. She's got two things. One is in her backpack, she's got ton of information. I don't know if she's pulled it out yet, and we've talked about it more. I think Sakershan, who likes to attend these meetings at probably all kinds of odd hours his time, has been, I'm sure has some ideas about that, but he may not chime in because he may be, one eye open. I don't know. So
I was actually thinking that there are two near-term tasks that we could look at. One is that 3 weeks back, the spec was posted, right? And in a discussion issue, and I'll post a link to the discussion on the Zoom chat. And we can use the spec as a baseline around which to collect ideas around harms and risks and go forth from there. So instead of doing it in abstract theoretical way, there's some concrete baseline around which we build something. So that's a very near term thing. The other thing that happened is that almost around the same time, the verifiable trust community bootstrapping, I won't call it a spec, but it was mostly a lot of text and ideas that Drummond put in. This is the second discussion link on that, number 22. And that's another one where probably you can take a look at and see if there are things that need to be poked and probed and highlighted, because I think Scott will agree when I say that there is a lot of enthusiasm and rapid development of all of this in the spec community side of things. But the rapid feedback to them to be able to very nimbly adjust to what they're receiving and make improvements, we have not been able to do that primarily because we have not been meeting regularly. And so we have an opportunity to do that and make things move the way we want them. And I'm going to stop there because that's probably where we are. I think these are the two concrete near-term things we can accomplish.
yeah. So the other thing is that Drummond wears two hats here. He's looking to get as much as he can from Trust over IP through contributed volunteer efforts to create some guidance and some specs that they can use. Whatever he can pull out of this working group and task forces could help alleviate how much time, energy, and expense that he'd need to build out, an application of this. And so he So he's doing, so he had a meeting last week. I listened into a lot of it. My feedback is that, there's still a lot of scoping and a lot of pre-orientation type of things regarding, and so there has been, but most of the discussion similar to what I've heard in the working group is they're still trying to, they're still trying to scope out and feel out a direction to go. We're not even at the starting gate. And so it's difficult to identify risks and identify harms in a movable target. But I agree with you, Sankshan. If we have a spec, we could do something about the spec because it's there, it's concrete, we could do something. Um, However, I still get the sense that we're premature here. That's my feedback.
This is
Yeah, go ahead, Nathan.
thanks, Kevin. Thank you, Scott, for kind of the flyby, or it was a good kind of update for orienting the group, but also I appreciate just you probably shared a little bit more about the backstory stuff, so that was helpful for me. Kevin just invited me because we were on a previous call, and I happened to bring up risk assessments organically. And then he's like, I'm having a call after this about that. I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
So right now it's dry, but it's usually soggy this time of year. So I've been
Half
I'd love
time
to
in
be
Seattle, so that was my little.
okay, perfect.
I just
Yeah.
found I have a house here for 6 months where I can see sun for 6 months.
Yeah, it's like that's nice. I wish I had more sun right now. And I'm in a couple groups with Kevin, kind of the relational trust building containers, pursuing livelihood generation kind of themes. But what I do for a day job is I'm a manufacturing process development engineer who does risk assessments. The engineering tool is an FMEA, failure modes effects analysis, very structured, used by automotive a lot. But regardless, I get pulled into risk assessment type work a decent amount
Mhm.
at my day job. And hearing that, Kevin was like, maybe join this call and just hear what's going on with this group. And apologize, I need to actually leave in about 10 minutes to head to that job, but
Yep.
appreciate
Yep.
being able to just be part of this discussion and help me with orienting.
Well, I think, and so I'll leave you with so I helped to build a governance toolkit within the Trust over IP organization. And what I found in doing that, because most scheme developers or people that are trying to get collective agreement over a set of standards, um, that tend to be done by a very few organizations, and a lot of them especially in your area and all that, that's a profession. They do that problematic. In our arena, in decentralized trust, the thought is, and it's happening, that governance responsibility is now being pushed to new entities that don't even understand, the basics of a governance system. And so it was required to give them certain building blocks so that they could at least come up with a structured way of creating requirements that actually meet their objectives of reducing risk. A lot of times people don't even know, we're going to eliminate risk. Well, it's difficult to do that. What is the basis of things? And so what you'll find, and I will leave you with a link to the toolkit, is it's it's not precise. There's an assessment, qualitative assessment of risk based on likelihood and impact. And both likelihood and impact are qualitative assessments. But it is based on standards, IT standards that use these two mechanics to derive it. So here's the link to the deliverables, and I put it in the chat. And you need to go to the governance side, and you'll see two documents. In the governance side, governance stack working group, you'll see a risk assessment template, which is kind of what we started with here, and a companion guide, which really educates folks on how to complete the templates. So that's the level that we're at. I think it's a lot less precise than you're used to dealing with in your environment, but you got to look at the audience. And in manufacturing and hardware and all that can be more precise. You can be down to millimeters and things like that. In IT, that's harder to do. Some areas you can be very precise. So I'd say that. And what I'd say to all of you is any other feedback on what we need to do. I think the exercise, as Sankarshan says, is let's take a look at the spec that's in the chat and take an exercise to, at minimum, let's review it and let's identify discussion areas that can be problematic to a threaten harms lens. And, based on that, we can, at least start working on what I think you were asking for before, is have we, pulled anything out on threats and harms? Well, we didn't really have anything to assess against. So now we do. So let's take an exercise to take the first pass. Does that make sense? So
I like that.
we'll let the group know tomorrow, let Nikki know tomorrow, and we'll have an exercise that everyone at least has reviewed what Sankarshan has, and at least we, can talk about what our feedback is about the document as it relates to threats and harms. Is that a
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So let's, unless we have other further conversations about this, let's save everybody's time, and then I can go over to my meeting, and Nathan can go out and start his day and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you,
everybody.
Scott.
Can I say one quick last thing?
Yep.
As you were talking about, you can't, I guess, eliminate all risk. One way that I've started to think about it, or the point is not to avoid risk. The point is to manage risk.
Right.
Which is very different things. I've been part of a company that's just avoided risk as much as possible. But that's not what you kind of enable.
You'll see in the methodology, you can do either. That's a stated part of the risk management process. If avoiding risk, especially if it's not into a domain that you can control, you want to look at risks that you can control, the ecosystem can control, and avoiding risk in this case would put it out of scope, and that may be a viable alternative. So one of the process steps is to interrogate after you've identified the risk and triage it. You look at and you say, well, how do I want to treat it? Do I want to go in and mitigate it? Then you do further processing. Some you may transfer or avoid, you may just accept it. Those are threes that would not require further processing methods. Okay. So we got that covered, yeah. I think we do. So
very good.
All right. Thank you.
Really nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. Thank you for the links. Now, all I'm seeing is discussions on it, but because you cited
discussions, this is the page is about discussions on those particular issues. So if you, let's say, look at the discussion about the spec, There's a
right?
first comment from Brendan that links to the spec itself, the zero point 0.3 draft.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you. That was the missing piece. So let's look at anyone reviewing this recording, go into the discussion item number 27, and the first comment is a link to the spec. So that's the goal of everyone. Let's just take a look at this before, and the challenge I have, I just clicked on it and it did not get, it gave me a 404 error. So
Yeah.
Oh, I was
Did
able
that's
to
the
not,
access
spec, oh, hang on, did the spec move from that link at this point in time? It's even more annoying.
yeah. So all
Ah,
right. So what I'll do is I'll raise that tomorrow with Drummond, and let's see if we can get a appropriate link. And so look at the working group minutes that Drummond usually puts out in his meetings on Wednesday, and hopefully that will have the new location for that spec. Okay.
Beautiful.
So
thank you.
we'll try to get that. Thank you for
If I do
please
dig up
finding
the
that out.
specs in between, I'll post it to the Discord channel that we.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. And
Thank
Nathan,
you.
I would encourage you, even as a contributor, to join Trust Over IP so that you can, actively be involved. It's a fairly straightforward thing. As an contributing consultant to whatever, it's free. And, you just have to fill a bunch of paperwork out, and then I sign the agreement. I'm a steering committee member of the steering committee, co-chair. So
Gotcha.
I'll look at that. And then, it's very low weight. You're just signing, property, proprietary rights on using, work in a standards development organization. Okay. So it'd be great
Sounds
Yeah,
great.
I'll get you those
have
instructions.
it's always good to have more people that have a lens on risk assessment. It's great, and love to have further conversations about that. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Well, thank you so much. And
Yeah.
I'll see you guys next week then. Okay.
Thanks,
Sounds
Scott.
great.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.